Hello, everybody, and a very warm welcome. I'm just going to do a quick technical check to see if my fellow panelists are there. Hello, we can hear you. Excellent. Panelists are on their way. Shall I wait till, I probably should wait till my panelists are here and then I can start, I think. Is that a good idea?
You got one.
Here we go. Here's Beth. Hi, Joseph. Hi, Zara. Hi, Rita. And finally, Caroline. I think this is seamless, isn't it? I think we're all here. So, without further ado, let's get started on this incredibly important topic. Welcome, everybody. My name is Ed, and I work as an industry manager on the travel team at Google. And on behalf of my company, we're delighted to be partners of Women in Travel and support the integral work carried out by Alessandra and the team. So a big thank you for joining us today for the panel discussion, Careers, AI, Technology and Travel. How do we ensure that all women enjoy the available opportunities? So I have to admit, as a white privileged male, I nervously asked Alessandra if she was sure I was the right person to moderate such a panel, and she told me in no uncertain terms, of course, we need to get men on board and they need to help. So Alessandra, I promise to give it my best shot, and not just in moderating the panel today, but for the rest of my career. And thank you for asking me. So to set a bit of context, in 2020, not that any of you need reminding, we were forced to leave our offices as the pandemic took hold and technology truly took stage in our lives. And even the most reluctant amongst us succumbed to the use of video calls, digital platforms and other technology. And women in travel technology, however, remain an oddity. And data shows that many women do not associate travel and tourism with technology, and that there's also a perception that technology is outside their comfort zone. So perhaps it would be useful to set the scene behind today's panel with some fairly bleak data points, starting with the World Economic Forum's 2020 Global Gender Gap Report, which shows that 26% of professionals in data and AI are women. Next up, the University of Oxford published a study predicting that 850,000 public sector jobs will be lost by 2030 due to automation. And though new tech and data science jobs will be created, many office and administrative roles that women had traditionally gone for across all sectors will disappear. Even for women who are in tech careers, attrition is an enormous problem. So a survey published by the Centre for Talent Innovation shows that 56% of women in private technology companies leave their organizations at the mid-career point, which is about 10 to 20 years. And of the women who leave, 51% abandon their tech training altogether and move into other occupations. Sexism, bullying, sexual harassment are clear contributors to the high attrition rates. And the gender pay gaps for women, male-dominated office culture, lack of access to mentors, and gender bias in hiring are also discouraging factors. And finally, according to McKinsey research, during the pandemic, though women make up 39% of global employment, they have accounted for 54% of overall job losses. So those pieces of research do not make for easy listening, but it only reinforces how crucial it is as a topic for our panel today. And so to discuss how we can address these challenges head on, to promote tech travel careers and use technology to empower women, I'm honoured to introduce you to such a distinguished and informed panel. So to start with, I'll ask the panelists to introduce themselves and tell us a bit about their organisations and their roles within them. So if we start alphabetically with Beth, do you want to come off mute and say hi?
Hi, everyone. Nice to see everyone here. So I am Beth Taylor. I'm the Vice President of Corporate Marketing at MicroStrategy. If you don't know MicroStrategy, they are a leader in BI, business intelligence, an early market leader as well. We're also doing some pretty interesting stuff on the corporate financing side with Bitcoin, holding Bitcoin as a treasury asset. I am here today, though, because I'm only 6 weeks into this role. I was the head of marketing at ATPCO, which is a leader in the air travel space that sits on, brokers, and manages the world's airline pricing and retailing data. Prior to that, I was at IBM in cloud, and I was also at Booz Allen Hamilton, a global consultancy, also in cloud and big data. So I've been on both sides of the fence within travel, tech, and back to tech.
Welcome and thank you so much for joining the panel today. Next, I'll hand over to Caroline.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Delighted to be here. I am Caroline Mather. I'm Marketing Director at OAG. For those of you who don't know OAG, and I'm sure quite a lot of you probably do, it started off as a publisher of flight guides 90 years ago, but today we're a very different business, still in flight information, but tech-enabled, tech-driven. I often say liberated by tech, actually, these days, with the direction of travel we're going in, and just creating data solutions for the market. I've been at OAG for over 7 years, looking after the marketing team, looking after the relationship with the market and creating awareness around what we do. So I moved into tech and travel from an events background as well, so I've made quite a big switch there. So hopefully from that point of view I have a lot of experience to bring to the panel. Thank you.
Thanks, Caroline, and over to Joseph.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joseph Williams. I am the founder and CEO of Included AI. We are a tech firm trying to build the world's most ethical AI, and focused on democratizing opportunity, which means that we are tackling talent mobility, we are tackling hospital waiting lists, we are tackling the way that public officials are appointed. Topical. And so we're just trying to really bring around a much more equitable social mobility mechanism in the world. Alongside that, I've also been a campaigner and activist for the best part of 2 decades, which has landed me my favorite job title of all time, activist in residence at King's College London. Looking forward to getting to know you all and Q&A at the end of the session today. Thanks.
Thanks, Joseph. Over to Rita.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rita Varga, and I'm the CEO of Rise Up. We are an AI-powered professional and personal growth marketplace, designing individual learning journeys to empower diversity and inclusion goals across the organizational map. And I'm also a founding member of Hera by Hotel Resbot, which is an AI-powered reservation assistant and travel agent channel manager. And I'm pretty happy to hear your opinions and questions about how to make tech more equal.
Amazing. Well, luckily you're on this panel, so we'll definitely be asking you about that. And finally, Zara, I imagine with a name like Zara Zamani, you are always
absolutely right. I was just about to say that. Zara Zamani, always last one, but that's fine. I'm used to it. But hi, everyone. I'm Zara, and I work as Head of Disruptive Technologies at Metabytes, and we are an IT consultancy firm, but specializing in building disruptive and emerging technologies platforms like blockchain, AI, IoT, etc. But we work in travel industry, healthcare industry, and supply chain specifically. But I'm also a researcher and a lecturer at Halmstad University in Sweden, where I teach technology management and technology adoption. Thank you.
Brilliant. Well, what a panel. And so I'd love to spend, now let's see, I think we've got till 3:15 UK time. So we'll maybe spend the next 20 to 25 minutes asking the panel a series of questions, and then we will hand it over to the audience for Q&A. So I think if we could start, I can see in the chat window there that people wanted to see the fairly bleak stats and data points, and these are just a very small number of them. I think everyone here probably has their own data points that speak to the problem that we're facing. So I think it would be a useful exercise perhaps to start with a sort of deep dive on the challenges that women face when it comes to careers, AI, technology and travel. So I'd like to ask maybe some of the panel to share their experiences and observations. And Zara, to make sure that you go first this time, would you like to sort of kick off? Yeah, what challenges have you seen when it comes to careers, AI, technology and travel?
To be honest, when we talk about challenges, I think it's always good to categorize them both internal and external. And when I say internal, I mean challenges within you yourself as a woman, and then challenges that you face in an environment, right? And when you look at yourself as a woman in tech, I started my education in electrical and electronics engineering, technical education, then gone to very technical industry. I work in oil and gas industry, then technology always are surrounded by men. So, but the biggest challenge I always have had was my own fear as a woman, the fear of facing the fact that I'm actually a woman in tech, that I can have my own voice, that I actually am much better than a lot of men around me, that I'm actually capable of doing it. So that fear is the biggest challenge from my point of view. But of course, because I worked in 12 countries around the world, in many different, we have different, societal sexisms or geographical challenges. I remember I had my own travel tech and fintech business where I work as a CEO, and I founded the business in Iran, and I was working there for 8 years. And many meetings that I attended, I was told that, oh, we wanted to meet the CEO. And I was the CEO myself, so I always had to reintroduce myself, always had to, create that environment that, okay, I am a woman, I am a young woman in tech, but I'm also the CEO, I am capable. I had to prove myself double, triple, even more than that all the time. It can be sometimes frustrating, but that is a challenge we are facing. Or, there's always this glass ceiling that you can go as a woman to up to certain level in technology, and then from there onward you always have limiting environments for you, which can be of course different from Sweden where I'm working today. Of course, I'm talking about Middle East at the time, and of course not everywhere is the same, but these are some of the challenges. So we have internal fear as a woman, I think, that we really need to overcome, but also this societal sexism, etc., that we are facing as women.
Absolutely, it's certainly a global challenge, and it's more so in some areas of the world than others, but it is all over the world. Yeah, I might come to Rita next. I don't know if you have any experiences that you'd like to call out.
Yeah, so one of my personal missions is to, the approach towards tech, to make it more approachable. And I'm a woman in tech, and I'm very vocal about I never coded a line in my life, yet I am a woman in tech, because I assess my own skill sets, and I assessed my own skill sets and what am I capable of, and sort of placed myself or found myself in different roles within the tech space according to my skill sets, right? So it is for me more about what are my capabilities and resonating with tech in aligned with that, rather than what is the perception, what actually technology, what do you mean about technology? When you say technology, is it a piece of device? Is it a line of coding? Or is it actually something, group of skill sets that you bring with yourself, such as communication skills, team building, overlook projects from A to B and see how that connects people. And combined with, you know, what Zara said, self-confidence is really important to see and able to identify those skill sets in yourself. And another key thing is representation. I now see, you know, on the panel 4 other women in tech. But if I see a lineup with 6 men, then I probably don't see myself identified in that line. So the more vocal we are about it, the more we come out of our own comfort zone and be proud of being a woman in tech, the more other generations, future or previous generations, will get attracted to tech-related roles.
Absolutely. Yeah, and tech is such a broad, all-encompassing word, isn't it? I mean, very few of us probably have jobs now that don't involve tech to some degree. Yet I think there's perhaps an intimidating language that comes with the word tech, and even just hearing phrases like blockchain, you know, that gets me all kind of, gives me the shivers. I'm like, you know, I work at Google, I should really know more about blockchain, but it's not part of my day-to-day job, and yet I work in tech. So, but actually, speaking of blockchain, we do have a couple of kind of experts here. I don't know if Beth, you want to talk, not necessarily about blockchain, but because we could, but just a bit more about this area in terms of perceptions and yeah, some of the experiences you have faced during your career.
Yeah, I'm laughing because I was early days at IBM involved with the Hyperledger work, and when I came into HPCO, which is a big data, you know, broker, I've talked a lot about blockchain and governance structures when you're in part of a data supply chain. And I literally had someone say, if you mention it again, I'm going to hit you with my blockchain. So I've definitely been on the edge of, you know, asking myself, am I the one that's maybe disconnected from reality when I'm pushing some of these more bleeding edge kind of concepts on the tech side? And I would say, you know, I think that's a challenge overall for travel that's quickly being addressed, right? Which is this kind of influx of folks from outside of travel coming in either from a disruptive standpoint or a standpoint of partnership, which there's a lot of opportunity for all, which is kind of that constructive dissonance between folks that maybe align themselves with bleeding edge, and maybe they may identify themselves more on the tech side. And then there's folks that have spent a career, you know, in travel, growing with the architectures as they were originally built, evolving with how things have gone. So they have that depth, but maybe they aren't as connected to the cross-industry bleeding edge. And there's so much to be done there, which I think, I mean, it's a thing for women, but it's for everyone, right? Which is, how do you kind of partner more effectively? And, you know, I think one of the things that speaks to the personal aspect is resilience in that, right? Because it's very easy to kind of cast off folks that may look or sound different from you. But the folks that are getting it right are the ones that are inclusive, right? And I think there's a very year over year, the speed at which everyone's capacity to tolerate it is diminishing, right? So I think that there's a lot of bright years ahead for travel, given some of the new players coming in from the tech side.
Very good. And also feel free to my fabulous panel to come in at any point as well. Don't feel like you have to you have to wait for me to ask or anything like that. So if you have a point, please say. But I might move us on to talking about what can we do. So let's think about these clear challenges that are facing women. How can we use technology to help us? How can we use it to empower women? And what opportunities are out there? So I don't know if anyone wants to kick us off. I didn't come to maybe Caroline or Joseph, if you'd like to think about what opportunities are out there. Go, Caroline.
Thank you, Joseph. Yeah, I think the opportunities, I guess, are really to sort of look at the roles rather than just the jobs, and to look at what is needed from a role. And I think being more transparent around that language is really important, and that's an opportunity for employers, and it's an opportunity for future employees to understand that, you know, what is critical for that role in terms of experience and skills and what isn't, and making sure we can attract more talent and more transferable skills. So there is a lot more we can do in terms of the recruitment side as well. I think that's really important that we rethink that.
Absolutely. To into that point, Caroline, it's the single biggest reason that we've recognized the single greatest obstacle to talent mobility and removing barriers to access is this convoluted way that we decide to attract people to roles, which we call a job spec. We've done countless tests over the last kind of three years around what the ideal length of a role specification could be in order to attract someone to a job and to get an accurate match. And we found condensing job specs into skills and behaviors matrices as an entry point qualification, as opposed to looking at technical expertise. Very Simon Sinek way of looking at talent, really harnessing into what people are capable of as opposed to what people have done, unlocks talent at rates that we're seeing. It increases in 30+% in gender, 40+% in ethnic diversity, 30+% in sexuality and disability. We are creating obstacles for ourselves by the the theory that we think is going to determine success for somebody to enter into a role with, which is the job spec. It's the single biggest blocker. But to that point, getting talent in is only about a fifth of the problem. A lot of this conversation is dominated by representation, largely from a recruitment attraction perspective. That is a KPI that is driven by the objectives of the organization as opposed to the individual. And so in order to truly set up talent for success, diverse talent for success, we need to be really focusing on the cultures that we're landing people into, because you can hire 20 people tomorrow. We could help you do it. But you know, that's only one part of the problem. It's if you're landing people into a culture where they are not set up for success, where people don't understand the value add that individuals bring, until we evolve this conversation into how cognitive balances within teams are put together, we will continually not be seeing the sustainability and representation that everybody is fighting for at the moment.
I'll jump in here because this is something as someone that knew nothing about the travel industry when I came in 4 or 5 years ago, as I started talking more about this topic in particular, I was like, smart people can learn, right? And so you don't have to have the 20 years of depth, but you do have to have a welcome seat at the table, right? And if you can't find a welcome seat, you find an organization that allows you that. And I think that's something that's really, really important to attracting tech into travel. The other thing, just from an opportunity standpoint, that I am still amazed by, tech is a very broad space. Travel is not, right? It is way more approachable from a community standpoint. You can get to know the right people in your niche or cross niche of travel in a relatively short time, right? So not being afraid to kind of speak up when you want to learn more from leaders within your organization or other organizations. I have found, at least in my experience in travel, people are very hungry to have those conversations. Whereas, if I were to email a cross-functional peer at Microsoft, right, they might not respond because they're like, who is this person? But in travel, you generally know who these organizations are, and when people have an appetite to learn, that direct communication actually can yield some pretty significant results. So I would say, again, from an opportunity standpoint, anyone that's unapologetic to kind of create their own opportunity has every capability to rise and kind of rise cross-organizationally within the space.
It sounds like you've got some personal experience of using that community, Beth. I don't know if you're happy to share, how you've used that perhaps as an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I am extroverted, so that helps. But when I came in, I was in ATPCO, which is basically at the center of all airlines and anyone that sells a flight ticket, right? So they have a natural community, so does OAG, in terms of their access to parties. And really, like conversation after conversation, you would just very quickly learn kind of where the sentiment is. And quite frankly, this group, like this community, the topic of diversity and inclusion, women in tech, women in travel tech, the minute I started having those conversations, within 6 to 9 months, I had doubled and tripled my network within travel. And like, again, I think there is a hunger to have those conversations. And in some other industries where they're much bigger, it takes longer to make progress. And when you have a smaller industry like travel, you can kind of do it exponentially if you have the appetite for it.
Mentorship and sponsorship in general, I think it's what Beth is actually doing, and we are all doing, is to actually promote the role and promote that there is a career that can be made out of travel technology. And if we look at the landscape, many of the actors or stakeholders within the travel tech space, they're coming from hospitality, events, travel, and that area is occupied by women of 55%. So we have a major opportunity to bring people in from the hospitality and travel sector into the travel tech space by educating them and by making them realize that what you bring and the knowledge that you have and the experience that you have could be actually used in certain roles within the tech space. But you do need mentoring for that. You do need education. And more importantly, what Beth is doing and what we are doing on a daily basis is sponsoring the role and open to everyone. However, as Joseph was saying, we need that openness from the organization as well. And the first thing is, if the organization says, oh, we don't have a diversity issue, then you don't have a point to, make by recruiting women, because you don't want them. The first point is, if you want to open roles within the organization or looking to get more diverse in the industry, is recognizing that you actually need that diversity within your organization and what is the value that diverse talent will bring you when it comes to the bottom line as well.
This Natasha in the panel has raised in the chat window, which I know Joseph would definitely want to talk about, and in fact you've pasted a slide of it. Myth or reality, I think, is the question. Isn't recruiting automation software creating a barrier? Joseph, do you want to take that?
100%. And recruitment and internal TA are literally the worst proponents of creating barriers to entry. However, it's not their fault. This goes back to my point earlier about the KPIs always anchoring to the needs of the organization as opposed to really elevating the potential that talent brings. The reason that I set up this company was because I found out that after really probing into an organization I was working with, what their candidate satisfaction rates were, and then started doing a kind of broader piece of research around it. And around 75% of candidates have a negative experience of the recruitment process. So even before we are appointing people into our organizations, we are hemorrhaging trust and relationships. Of that 70%, around 70% will never apply for a job at an organization again that they have a negative experience with. So when we talk about organizations needing to really step up the way in which they see their real competitive advantage, which is people, talent, until we start addressing this process that clearly doesn't work and trying to find new solutions to it, we are going to continually be hemorrhaging people and trusted relationships with people that are going to be invaluable to the sustainability of our organizations. How do we do that is the billion-dollar question. We do that by creating points of transparency and accountability and re-engineering the recruitment process. And this kind of then plays into that point I was making earlier about talent being seen for what they can do and what they can bring, as opposed to what they've done historically. Because with that increased creative license, you can start bringing more people into a process. And by increased accountability and transparency, you can create a much more candidate-centric experience that you can continually challenge if you are if you are exited from. One of the most inexcusable stats I've heard around the technology sector, so appreciate that we all I can't say the word properly, but statistics. It's around 11% of the whole engineering workforce is female. However, when you start looking at particularly emerging economy countries, the percentages of females entering into qualifications are around the kind of 30–40% mark. So in global digital organizations, in global technology focused organizations, the fact that we still have such a considerable deficit is endemic of a recruitment process that even for people who are majority represented in recruitment only succeeds 50% of the time. That is inexcusable and wouldn't be accepted in any other business line. So yes, so long story short, it's a massive problem. But so long as organizations are telling people speed and cost and efficiency when it comes to our most valuable competitive advantage, people, so long as we still brand human resources, human capital, and stop seeing people as a commodity, we will continually run into the same problems.
A flip to that, because I think the focus on recruitment's interesting, but I also think, I mean, I experienced quite a few people when I first came into travel who said, I had that same idea 10 years ago, but I found my glass ceiling or my blocker, right? And I think organizations, especially in travel tech, need to really invest in identifying who they can rise up and getting that culture kind of reset for the folks that may feel like, they may feel like they kind of hit their glass ceiling years ago, but investing and identifying the folks that can rise up, because I do get the sense that folks feel like they have to move in order to rise, right? And there's a lot of cost to that. And one of the things I know when I was at IBM that I really appreciated was the CEO at the time, Ginny Rometty. She started as a junior software engineer at IBM, and she rose to become CEO of the largest, one of the largest tech companies in the world. So there's has to be a path to identify those folks so that especially women don't feel like they are forever managers or forever specialists. And sometimes it's harder when you're in a smaller organization that doesn't have the funding to create these really deep learning development paths. But it's something we've got to do, because it just ends up costing more. And to your point, the recruitment process isn't perfect. And you don't want people that are talented to leave because they feel like they can't rise.
From my experience, the fluidity around organization is really important, and our organization was has really evolved and had a lot of older roles that sort of in admin, and sort of when before technology really hit us, and then we've had people move around the business now who have learnt new skills, who had transferable skills, who could move into new roles as technology has enabled us. And they, maybe 10 years ago were doing a completely different role, but have actually evolved, and we've created opportunities for people to do that. And I think that's also important, that you don't just look and say, right, that function, we don't need it anymore. You look at where those people, what they bring to the business and where they could add value in another part of the business. I think that's really important.
That's really good point. I'm going to move us on to the final topic before we open up to the Q&A. But Caroline and Beth and everybody, you pointed out some opportunities there. I'm going to hit you guys with a couple more data points because it looks like there's appetite for that. So the first of which is to say, so many researchers have underlined the benefits of gender equality in the workplace. The presence of women increases groups' problem-solving abilities, first of all, drives innovation, which comes from another source. Gender diversity is also associated with higher sales revenues, larger numbers of customers, and greater profits. So there's kind of, you know, the no-brainer. Then the other thing is when you see jobs within the industry, there's research that says that in the US alone, 2.7 million data science jobs are going to be opening up by the end of the year. So there's loads of sort of jobs that are coming into the market. And so my next question is, hearing about those opportunities, what can we do to encourage women to take up these opportunities and bring more female talent into travel tech? So who would like to take that one?
I can start on that one. Well, to be honest, we kind of touched a bit about recruitment languages, but I want to go back there again, because I think that is extremely important, being in tech and also working in emerging tech. I work as in my technical expertise, I'm a blockchain architect. And when you look at the job specifications that are out there on technical jobs, they're extremely, because this industry is a male-dominant industry, so it's written in male language, and that is a language of, you know, power and money, and that is basically how Hofstede, the cultural researcher, actually describes this language. So it's not how I'm describing it, but it's by research. And then the language is very male-oriented language, while there is really a big gap of putting out job specifications with a little bit more female language, which is the feel of, you know, team, family, and caring, etc. And there was a research done by a spec ops software that showed that 63% of women claim that there is a gap of inclusivity in their job specifications in tech industry. That means they don't feel included when they read the job specifications, or they don't feel they will be mentored. That means they don't feel that we will be taken care of. And they don't see a progression as a female in those job specifications. They don't see the equality, that they will be treated the same. And these are all exactly the same things that we miss when we describe tech positions. We talk about the tech requirements that we need. We talk about what is this position about, and that's it. We don't talk about how we're going to take care of you as a part of our team to grow in this tech position that you're actually going to take in. So that is, I think, one very important. And of course, mentorship. A lot of us women who have reached, you know, to stable positions in tech industry, we kind of either forget all the challenges we had, or we get so busy and, you know, what we're doing, that we sometimes do miss taking care of the junior ones, do miss to take care of the ones that actually want to start their career and their opportunities coming up. So it's really important for us to give back and give time and mentor young girls, and you know, try to educate and mentor them and open up avenues for them in the industry.
Completely agree, Zara, and I think confidence is a huge part of that I've seen throughout my career, in terms of that's been a real barrier for a lot of women to get jobs, read a job description and not be put off by it, see the real positives about how they match it, and then go and perform in an interview, because, you know, you can see how that has affected a lot of people in some of their opportunities. I personally,
exactly,
it's really important. You know, women need to sell themselves better.
We had that experience in our own company. Yeah, sorry, I think I got disconnected. We had that experience in our company when I joined the company as the head of disruptive technologies. I was the only girl in my department, and that was not something new for me, right? I was kind of used to that. But then when I look at the job specifications, and I'm like, duh, of course I'm the only girl. So we made changes, and now we have 3 other girls who are working with emerging tech with us. And that is specifically 2 of them have mentioned it, that the job specification, the job ad actually attracted them because they thought they feel comfortable working in this company.
Joseph, sorry, I know you've spent time kind of using AI to look at ideal job descriptions, haven't you?
Yes, we have.
Right, Bill.
However, the thing that I would particularly like to add on the opportunity side of things, and I will touch on the kind of the how tech can be used to neutralize, but we I think the biggest opportunity we have is actually starting to integrate psychological understanding in the way that we are understanding the types of people that can do certain roles, as opposed to just looking at technical capability. I state this because one of the biggest misconceptions we have with our entire ecosystem of learning is that you stop developing instincts past the age of 7. So really you have between the ages of 3 and 7 to shape someone's kind of core understanding and kind of imprint. This is the whole leopard doesn't change its spots thing. If you expose people to different cultures, difference, period. If you expose young people to technology and different formats of learning in that key age, then you create somebody who will be adapt to learning throughout their entire different formats of learning throughout their entire life. So you are priming your workforce. When we talk about career pathways, we look sometimes horizontally, largely just down. We start looking at colleges, we start looking at universities when we're talking about sustainably improving talent. So long as we stop ignoring early years, I mean, travel industry has a fantastic opportunity here because there are touch points with young people constantly, exposing narratives for the excitement of working in these industries that are fulfilling your opportunity to see and explore the world. Like, there's so much that can be done as a vehicle for inspiration at that critical age, inspiring parents to give exposure to. There's a real sustainability question in all of this, and so long as we keep on focusing on what's here, we will continue having this 11% representation, 17% representation, because we technically do not have enough of the right skills that can even be transferable. It will be too much of an investment for companies to be over-indexing on. We're about to see one of the biggest redundancy rounds and statistical increases in joblessness at the end of UK furloughing that we will have seen in decades. We have such an opportunity to make an intervention here. However, this will see us through for the next kind of 5-10 years. In that time, if we make these right interventions now, we can sustain so much longer just by taking a more holistic kind of ecosystem view of how we are developing and nurturing talent.
That's an amazing framing of the opportunity. I'm going to go, Rita, I know you wanted to come in there for a final point before we go to Q&A.
Yeah, just I love to bring practicality and experience into conversations. So I have a 3-year-old, right? And she's a girl, and she identifies as female as well. Very much, you see gender attributes at an early age. However, we realized very quickly that she had some skills for building puzzles and building blocks, where we got to the point where we just tried giving her different tools to check out where she's going. So now she's doing slide coding even through applications to see what she's developing, versus you give a doll into a girl's hand because that's what girls play with. And that's it, we don't realize the impact that we're making on the upbringing of a child when we speak about gender modesty norms, when we speak about social modesty norms. This is what little elaborating on Joseph's point, and elaborating in general how we approach education, early education to institutions, universities, schools, how they approach the role of technology, how they approach skill sets as such, and where they could go and which way they can develop.
I think that raises an enormous societal change that needs to happen, and that is happily is starting to happen. But we are a long way, aren't we, from meaningful change? But I'm now very excited. What a panel! So huge thank you to everybody. But now is your chance, the audience, to ask questions. And I know that it's always nice to have a live question. So if you raise your hand if you want to ask a live question to the audience, and because it's also a scary prospect, I am going to offer a prize, which, can everyone see that screen there? Really push the boat out here. We are offering up a, I think this is called an anti-theft rucksack backpack to the person that asked the first live Q&A question to anyone on our panel. So there you go. Otherwise, if you'd rather not ask a live question, feel free to enter your questions into the Q&A tab. So no, panelists are not allowed to ask questions of themselves. Thank you, Joseph. Please his help to let me know if we have anybody. Who wants a free Google backpack? I mean, this is a, here we go. We've got our winner. Hello, Daniela.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everybody. My question is, and it's being raised by my 17-year-old that was here in front of me. We had a conversation the other day. Here in Spain is a big issue about the non-gender communication. So because in Spanish, Italian and French, we have masculine and feminine, now they want to talk, they want to make this conversation kind of plain, taking away the masculine and the feminine. What is your view of that? Is it going to help gender equality, or is going to confuse the matter even more?
Who'd like to take that?
I can start. Well, I will try my best. So, yeah. To be honest, I think adopting tech eventually, not only for tourism and travel industry, for all the industries, eliminates the gender biases in a way that you basically communicate with another peer, not with another gendered human. So and that is a really brilliant thing. So I can talk based on the technology I work with, blockchain, and then once you're on a blockchain platform and you're basically a user, an account, or a node, or whatsoever you are, then you don't really know the person working with you, who can be your remote co-worker in now or in the coming future, is a female, a male, or or with no gender, or whatever it is. So it's going to be more neutral in terms the approach towards gender as the technology evolves. So that is my point. The technology evolvement and adoption is going to make that less highlighted, the gender less highlighted in general.
Speaking as a former linguist, I mean, I love the languages and how they differ. So I don't know whether changing language is enough. Is really the point. I think actually gender equality goes much deeper than that, and that is just saying something slightly different. I don't think that will solve the problem. I think that's just messing beautiful languages that are just meant to be spoken a certain way. I think if only it was that easy, that we could just change a few words. I think it is deeper than that, and it starts with people's perceptions in organizations as well. So for me, I think it would probably confuse the issue.
If I can add into that as well, Ed.
Very quick, Joseph, and then I might ask Alessandra just how are we doing? Have we got time for one more question after this, and then we can wrap up? I know we're at time. Alessandro. Anyway, Joseph, you carry on with your answer. We'll see if Alessandro. Oh yeah, great. Quick question after Joseph's response, and then
Barsha looks like she wants to ask a question, so happily to.
I'm happy for you to finish, Joseph, and then I'll ask.
Okay, super quick. Super quick. So just kind of layering into Caroline's point, but also just being so wary of aesthetic change that kind of makes it seem like we are moving in a certain direction, but actually not addressing the real problem. The problem is with most languages is that we have a preconceived idea of the types of words that are associated with a masculine or feminine gender. Actually, the way in which we mitigate that is creating a broader range of language that we use to describe certain things. I appreciate in a lot of the Romantic languages, we do have that kind of gendered pre-description to a word. However, the way that we get around that is cultural change. It is not trying to adapt a language that is quite fit for purpose for all intents and purposes. Being so wary of the aesthetic changes, a lot of people will use them to try and deflect away from the real issues.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. So I think we've definitely stretched our budget to award Barsha the second Google backpack of the day. And would you like to pose your question to the panelists?
Yeah, I'd like to ask the lady panelists, if I may. Thank you very much for coming to speak today, first of all, because it's great to hear from you and to hear how much you've achieved. I just wondered whether, and if you wouldn't mind sharing, if it's happened to you, an experience where you felt that you'd had your confidence knocked or felt demotivated by another colleague, which could be male, but could be female as well, and how you sort of handled that and came back from that, because clearly you're all so successful. You obviously dealt with it if it happened to you, but if you wouldn't mind sharing it with us.
I would say ignore it and move on. No, like I think this happens. It happens for gender. It happens for age and tenure. When you run into that, you just have to there's always another forum in another room that's having the exact same discussion, right? And that's within your own organization. It's within the broader industry. It's beyond industry. So, I mean, I think the number one thing there is don't get discouraged. It's that resilience element. And, if you don't naturally speak up and you're just learning to kind of like push yourself into that uncomfortable spot and you hit something like that, just pivot and keep going. I think it's really important to find your own resilience with that.
Go on, Caroline. Final point.
I agree. I mean, I think, you've just got to be resilient and also think that, so just because people say things a certain way doesn't mean they really, know what they're talking about either. I think there's sort of sometimes this perception that people say things in a way and people get it, but, trust your own judgment and come away from those situations and think, and be resilient.
A great place to wrap things up. So sadly, that is all we have time for. But I'd like to say a huge thank you to you, our audience, but also to, most importantly, to our amazing panel, to Beth, Caroline, Joseph, Rita, and last but by no means least, Sarah, for giving up their time, providing such excellent insight and advice that we can all take back to our own organizations and our lives. So let's keep going with this amazing momentum generated from today and from IWTTF. And let's not rest until we've achieved our goal of total equality. So thank you so much for joining. We're now going to take a short break.